Well, once again, it's another Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube and Rumble. Thank you for tuning in. You know what time it is. It's another edition of Otaco Thursday. Thank you for clicking on this video. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and don't forget to drop a comment in the below on your thoughts of this particular episode and subject matter we're talking today. We are going to be talking about anime and manga piracy today. We're just going to touch base on that because there's a lot going on. But we're going to start off with this. We're not starting with the top 10 or anything like that. We're going to look a little bit back onto 2024 itself because we had a lot going on. And I'll tell you, winter 2025, there's a lot going to be going on now. I mean, we got a lot that's starting up right now. We just had about a few that are just kicking on, including the return of Solo Leveling. We also have a lot more elf type anime out there. It seems like 2024, 2025, 2 years of just a lot of elf stuff out there. I mean, last season, well, actually last year, we had, one of the best, I think, animes out there for 2024 was Free Ren. Free Ren was such a good story. I mean, I was talking to some people in the chat on, I don't know, it's a little bit slow and all that. Actually, it's a good story. It's a good adventure story. I mean, you look into the perspective that this is an elf that's lived a long time. Most of her friends are either just about to die or have passed on, which basically they were declared heroes. And this is long past to their adventures. And she's seeing, what is now considered history. And she's experiencing that through statues and her travels through these towns and people realizing who she is and everything like that. And now that she's taken on some more adventurers to go with her, that she's on her way into a new battle. I mean, it is a really good series. I mean, we're going to see a second season on that, which is coming soon. I mean, this is one of many things on there. Some of it controversial, like gushing magical girls, or some really insane stuff like Don Da Don Don, which was out there. In fact, just to put it into perspective, I think 2024 sums it up with this. And a little bit of this. Yeah, that's right. Stuff like Mashal and Don Da Don Don. Just the insane anime that they were, but they were really, really good. I mean, Don Da Don Don is excellent. I haven't finished Mashal season 2 yet, but I'm going to be getting to that very soon myself. But it was fantastic. I mean, we had good stuff like Dragon Ball Damia, which was very under advertised by Crunchyroll itself. Crunchyroll, if you saw last week's video, there's a lot of problems over at Crunchyroll. This is why Netflix looks like it's going to be the new seated king when it comes to anime soon on that. It's on its way. Demon Lord 2099. I got to get to the last 2 episodes on that, which was very good on there. Of course, ReZero is excellent on there. Unfortunately, what was it? Danmachi, which is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, has been delayed into the last, 4 or 5 episodes, delayed till spring. And Artafuda, next episode, it's probably going to be the next couple of episodes, the last episodes in that series, are going to be delayed as well. I know the next episode is not going to kick in until about at least the 20th of January. I mean, there's a lot going on in Japan right now and a lot of delays and situations. I mean, these studios are backed up with a lot of work. But also, we got a lot that happened, also. Kaiju number 8 happened to be very good. Konosuba, Mushoku Tensei, Demon Slayer. We found out Demon Slayer is going to be finished off with not 1, 2, but 3 films on there. And there's some ones in between to talk about. You Are Miss Servant, which, I started a little bit on that. There was stuff off Netflix like Terminator Zero, which I said is a good premise for a Terminator movie. I mean, it is really. I mean, it completely changes the landscape of the Terminator series, the live action movies themselves. I mean, if you haven't seen this yet, it is, the animation is good. The premise is excellent. I'll tell you this. Think of it as a Terminator being dropped in the middle of Japan. Now, understand the rules and regulations of guns in Japan. It's not like the U.S. where, there are gun stores in certain states all over the place. You can walk in and get, sign up to get a gun. And in the case of the Terminator, you go in and get them, rip off guns. Arnold ripping off. Actually, he's done that in several movies. If you remember Commando too. But see, the thing is, in Japan, you can't do that. And unfortunately, the only people that have the guns is the military and the police. So it's not like the Terminator can go to military center or just situations of that nature. He can't just grab a weapon. So what do you do as a Terminator to, remedy the situation? And the remedy was fantastic. He created his own weapon, which was fantastically done. Like I said, the premise itself was good. The story was good. Now, are they going to transfer this on to, I don't know if it's getting a season 2, but, are they going to transfer this to a live action? Now, as far as what Terminator Zero has, is now that it's not only Skynet, there is another artificial intelligence computer that basically is going up against it or will join with it. Depends on how the story goes, and if there is a season 2. And the other one that Netflix ran was Grim Variations, which was based on the Brothers Grimm stories, which was also very, very good. You had like the Cinderella one, Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, The Elves and the Shoemaker, The Musicians of Brendan, and the Pie Piper of Hamelin. I think the best one on there was the Hans and Gretel one, which the way that ended, and that was really, really well done. Because they took it to a different level. And this is what companies like Disney should be doing. See, a lot of these stories that they've been putting out there, Snow White, Cinderella, all these stories were originated, actually some of them from Grimm, and then others that have been there for, they're in public domain. And because of the political landscape that's been going on in Hollywood these days, the writers and producers are scared to pull the trigger on some of these stories. This is why anime and manga has done phenomenal business. This is why Netflix is making money off of anime itself. It's not stuff that they're producing, it's the stuff that they're buying, that they're licensing into their streaming site. You get stories like this that comes out, and it's not talked about a lot, but when you finally sit down to watch it, and it's, like I said, it's only 6 stories. And this was also based on a manga as well, when it comes to Grim Variations. Is you've taken the story itself, the basis, and you've changed it way around. And I'm not talking about being woke like they've done some of this on. No, basically have given it to a new story in itself. Some of it has elements of the original, the way the original story went. That's what they did, is they took the original story. They didn't take what Disney put out and what are the current productions that are out there of these stories. They went back and looked at the original novels that these came from, the original stories, and said, what can I do to this story? Flip it around and make it interesting, new, gripping, and that people will sit and watch. And it did have its, moments in this. And like I said, the Hansel and Gretel story was excellent. I think that had a good outcome. You get a chance, grab that one. The other half, and I'll bring this up, and I think we had a break in between, is Dragon Ball Damia, which basically the last episode was True Strength. I know we're supposed to do a 20 episode season, and it's not going to kick back into at least January 10th. So there is a delay, and I think they took it because of the holidays, and also there have been, like I said, there have been some delays as well. But the problem that we have is the way Crunchyroll has handled this. They haven't advertised this. Now the English dub is being released very soon, if it hasn't started up yet. By the time that this video hits, and the thing is that you look at the English dub, will they promote that highly? Because I'll tell you this, the animation and the story is really good. The animation itself is fantastic. The fight that fight with Goku and Tamaji was really, really good. And the same thing with the Vegeta one, too. I mean, we got a story here that's, and a lot of people are saying that, and I said this before, this is not a homage to GT. And I know there's a lot of GT fans out there. I did not like it. And I'll tell you that straight out. I did not like it. It's not a Toriyama story. There may be elements of Toriyama, but it's not really a Toriyama story. And I think the way that Damiya was written, that basically it pushes GT out. Doesn't make it canon. It's the end of the Buu saga, Damiya, and Super. I think that's where we're going to end up on that. Will there be something beyond Super? I don't think so. I think Super might be the last. Who knows what I know I think it's his son that's working on this now, and just fixing whatever needs to be fixed for the. I believe they're doing another Super season on there, or whatever needs to be done on that. We hope it turns out as good as Damiya has. Because I think Damiya, it just knocks it out of the park. Because it brings back a little bit of the elements of the first series. It also brings back a little bit of Z. And it also brings a little bit of Super. And the movies in between. Because you look at the villains and all that, and you say to yourself, oh, these villains are a joke. Well, go back to the original series. Even go back into Z and go back into Super. The way Toriyama writes some of this stuff, yeah, he has villains, but he has different levels. Now, he has the villains that basically are the comic relief that to the situation. And then you have the master threat to the whole thing. Because they're talking about Do and Ku, which are like, Majin Ku, Majin Do, on how much of the insane they are. But you have to always remember one thing. Majin Buu was by accident. It literally was created just because he ended up like this. It was just literally, they got lucky with Majin Buu when Majin Buu was created. As far as the storyline goes. And that's why he ended up the way he ended up. Now, they're trying to recreate the same experiment to create a new Majin Buu, but it hasn't really worked out. First you had Ku, which basically he has some intelligence, and Do, which is literally a little more closer to Buu, especially with the chocolate and all that, and the way he fights and goes a little crazy on that. So you have on that. They could be a merger. People says, yeah, they might merge them together. Could be 2 or 3 of these that merge together and create a greater threat to the situation, similar to like a Cell. But only time will tell, see how far it goes. Now, one more thing to touch on, besides that, I just started, what was it, Elf Girl's Cat, S-Rank Monster, secretly an S-Rank Monster, which is, so far, episode 1 was good, and I have to catch episode 2, which I believe it should be coming out already. The other one that's on there, there was one I just caught by accident on High Dive. I Parry Everything, which was really a little bit insane in itself. You're talking about a kid who wanted to be an adventurer, went through the whole situation, didn't do well went back and began training and training on his own. And what he became is that, his power comes from that he parries everything. If you ever see someone sword work, that he uses a parrying motion to parry to defend, this is what this guy does. And he's become OP. And then there's some other things in between. Like, for example, he's made himself resistance to most poisons. Because there's a whole segment toward the end of the season 1. I mean, you just literally see him eating poisons. After he get bit by one, he'll take it and eat it, pass out, get up again. But overall, it's a really interesting series. Even though he's a kid, his brain level is like a kid. So it's like, he still treats him, because I don't know, they didn't really go into if he educated himself or basically he didn't. But it's sort of like, it's almost like Mashal in a way, if you watch Mashal. Because basically Mashal doesn't, he's in the world of magic and doesn't have brain within him. He's just literally just a muscle freak. But, I just really liked it. I parry everything. What do you mean I'm the strongest? It's if you watch it, it's currently on High Dive. And I believe Roku has it, but I think it's a High Dive subscription also as well. But in the coming weeks, we got a lot that we started. We said that Behemoth Cat thing series on there. We had, like I said, Solo Leveling and many others that are starting to click on that are very interesting. A lot of stuff that's going to be coming in the spring. That's going to be coming forward. The return of So I Killed 500 Slimes. It became, that one. She's back again. The Will Witch on there, which was really insane season 1. If you haven't watched that, it's on Crunchyroll. That one's a bit insane. And there are really no male characters in that series. It's mostly all girls in that series. I mean, there's a male that comes up every once in a while. But, I mean, main characters and secondary characters are all female. Go figure. It happens in anime. It happens a lot in anime, actually, on there. But let's move on. Let's move on a little bit here. And I've talked about it before, and we're going to talk about it again. In my youth, my anime roots started out in the late 70s. Right now I'm turning, by the time this air, I'll be close to my 58th birthday. Yes, I'm almost at 60. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot in my childhood. Like I said, I was there for the renaissance of filmmaking and broadcast television after the end of the Hays Code. Now, with Japanese television and anime, cable was on the beginning of its birth, in the 70s. And as people was just following in, HBO was just literally a small blip on the screen. Cinemax had not kicked in yet. They were a couple of years away. Of course, there was Showtime. There was, internet streaming was not even in the ballpark yet. Not till about at least the mid '80s, you start to see internet services start to kick in, but nothing majorly until the '90s. But the major thing is between cable and broadcast television is you still had UHF out there. Now, if you're not familiar with UHF was the secondary channel segment. You had VHF, UHF. VHF, you had the standard channels, 2, 4, 5, 7, 11, 13. Then when you went to UHF, that's when you start to get into the other PBS channels. Then you got into the Spanish stations, 41, 47, a couple of stations. Like if you lived in the New York tri-state area, you got some of the Jersey stations also, which were either regular stations or they were sharing PBS modes with them as well. So you had like multiple PBS stations throughout New York. Also remember, the United States is a melting pot. We have people from all over the world that live here that are American citizens. Now, we already had Spanish networks here in New York. But unfortunately, at the beginning of cable, we needed other channels for other ethnic groups. We needed stuff for the Asian population, which was like Korean, Chinese, Japanese. We needed stuff from the Russia, Polish, Italian, so and so, so and so. Eventually, we got them on cable, which you had to pay extra for, and which to this day you do pay extra for those channels, and there are multiple channels these days. But some of the networks from individual countries like Japan made deals with UHF stations here in the U.S. to bring some of their content forward for people living here in the U.S. that basically either have been here for quite some time and have a couple of generations grow up, or have just moved into the U.S. through legal immigration. And what happened was that there was a network here, WJNU, Channel 47. I believe is that Telemundo now? Is that Telemundo? Basically, they were one of the big standard channels out there. My mom was always watching that for her soaps at night when she was home. During the day, they had their soaps, they had their news, standard stuff like that. But on the weekends, and this is before the late night commercials that lasted for hours before that type of programming came in, was that a company called Nippon Television, came over and basically started to use the WJNU on the weekends after 7 or 8 p.m., streaming programming through that channel. And some of it was anime at the very early part of the evening. So this is how I got my first taste of anime, besides on what was on regular television. What was on Saturday morning cartoons, what was on weekday cartoons, and this is before Toonami, Cartoon Network and all that. I'm the one who grew up with Super Friends, which I'm watching Super Friends right now on MeTV Toons, the original first season of that. And, you had Gigantor, Speed Racer, Battle of the Planets. You had those shows that were going on there. On the other end, when you had the UHF on there, I saw stuff like Ikusan and Galaxy Express, Cyborg 009, many others that started to appear. And then as we got into the, and same thing with the cable era that was coming in, you had the VHS era and beta era, the videotape era kick in. And rental stores started to open up. Like I had one directly around me, which was one of the first and one of the last to close. They were the first to open, and they were when the video stores went out, they were one of the last to close. And they carried anime. They carried some anime titles that came out, but they cost, at that time period, remember, a regular movie, because the first thing I had was a beta cam. You were talking about between $70 to $90 for one at that time period. Prices obviously have come down since then. A lot cheaper now. But the same thing with anime. When the anime came out, and it was very scarce. Not a lot of stores was carrying it for sale. Not a lot of them were renting it as well. The ones that were being mass-produced and brought into the U.S., some of them weren't even subtitled or was badly subtitled. You paid an arm and a leg for 1 to 2 chapters. Episode 1 and 2. You're talking about $60 for episodes 1 and 2, and that was in the very beginning. Some higher. But what happened was you started to get piracy involved in here. Even though VHS industry, you had pirates as well. Actually, even before that, movies were being pirated, in the early part of the VHS era, but also prior to that, where basically there were some places, just duplication houses, production houses that would get copies of these reels and put them on what you call 3/4 inch tape. 3/4 inch tape is broadcast tape. Problem was on those films is you were limited. There was only one. Number one, there was only one speed, and basically anything above a 60-minute movie, which there were 60-minute movies back in the day, if it was above 60 minutes, you would have to watch it on 2 separate tapes. But piracy was there for it. It happened. You paid a penny, but you got what you wanted. And then as VHS kicked in, you started to get the VHS ones. Now, as far as the anime, to the point, in Chinatown, you had little stores, hole in the walls, and some of them still exist to this day, that basically sold you episode 1 or episode 1 and 2 or episode 1 through 5, depending, what they got. And yeah, they were subtitled. Somebody subtitled them. It wasn't the best subtitling, but it was decent. It was understandable. You were able to understand it. You sat there, man, about $25, $25-$30. You got about 1 to 2 episodes, up to 5, depending on where'd you go, what series it was, and how many episodes was out. Remember, this was a time period that most of this was coming out still, and still to this day, is week to week. So the pirates, the guys who were handling the piracy of the situation, they got it week to week. And, you hit the store week to week. When I was a kid, I did some work when I was old enough to do, saved some of my money up. Or if it was my allowance, I went down to Chinatown and I got, what I wanted in anime. And at that point, anime was still underground. As much as you saw some of it on Saturday morning and on weekday television, the series that, like Dragon Ball and all these other series that was coming out through the 80s, you only got to see them via bootleg. Until the networks saw what people were asking for, and this is before the internet got into play. You had networks like Cartoon Network that was coming into play, saw this and created, Toonami, obviously, and Midnight Sun and all the others to that situation. Because as we got into the late 80s, you saw Toho, Toei, all these studios saw that they saw a new customer as far as anime in the West. And not including the US, also South America as well. So they started to mass produce VHS, then DVDs. And obviously, like I said, if I said in another episode, there's one set I still have incomplete. That's Giant Robo, The Day the Earth Stood Still. I have them in individual episodes, which I paid about $25 for each. And I bought the Blu-rays, which is the entire series on one Blu-ray disc, which cost me the price of one episode when I bought it. For the price. So that shows you the price changes on there. But as we went on, with the Toonami and how Toonami made, just really soared with stuff like Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Sailor Moon, Mobile Gundam, all these series that started to get popular, the internet was starting to come into play. Now, when music was being pirated online, as internet downloads were getting better and better, the internet services were getting better and better. Dial-up was becoming more toward, fiber as it was changing over. There were those out there that created pirated sites, not only for music, but also for movies and videos, TV shows. And to this day, Some of those sites still exist, like Pirate Bay. Others are long gone. A lot of them are not even U.S. bound. They're just literally overseas, anywhere in Europe, Russia, Asia. And as streaming came in, piracy just went major extreme with anime and manga. Now, why would you think of that? Why would you put to that perspective? Now, still, at the point when this was starting, the popularity of anime and manga was still building. Remember, to this point, as popular as the stuff was on Toonami and stuff like that, a lot of this stuff was still coming up. Now, when piracy came in, there were places in the world that they knew anime and manga existed, but they couldn't get them unless if it was pirated. And what happened was, a lot of these pirate sites were able to get to certain areas, certain places in South America, certain places in Europe, Australia, where you couldn't get some of these titles. And to this day, there are certain titles that are not relatively available on any streaming site, anywhere. I mean, you have titles like Now and Then, Here and There, Karatagi, Hellgirl, Planetes, Berserk from 1997, The Rose of Versailles, Major, Blue Gender, Tomorrow's Joe, and many others. Bo. I can go through a whole listing on there. I mean, I don't even know anyone has interspecies reviewers available out there. I think you can get it still on, I believe, on Blu-ray, and it's not even, there's a dub version of it either. Some of these, you don't get dub versions of stuff like this, Redo the Healer, Gushing Magical Girls, even though they had some success. But the thing about it is, some of this stuff didn't end up in certain places. So where can you watch it? Pirate sites. Those pirate sites were able to push out these series and got more interested by viewers to look into the merch gear, more other episode on manga. They tried to look for these things and buy their merch. It did produce a business. It helped build a business for Japan. Sites like Ontaku has been, switching gears to 2024, 2025, have been, attacked by the ACE, which is Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment. You have others that have been like organizations like CODA, which is Content Overseas Distribution Association, which has gone after these sites. And Japan itself has been going after these piracy sites because they said, well, we're losing money to the situation. You have sites that have had over 100 million visits, and now you have the courts involved to shut them down. And the thing is, if it wasn't for the pirated sites, if it wasn't for the bootleg industry, anime wouldn't have been on the radar. It would have stayed in Japan. It wouldn't be the billion-dollar business that it is today. You have to remember, they make so much money to the situation. And, you hear these situations. Now, this is not a condoning of piracy or cheering on piracy, but you have to, someone put it in this perspective, who was in the industry, not in the anime, they were in Hollywood industry. Take it, for example, you go to a library, okay? and you pick up a manga or you pick up a DVD. Now, at the time, you can pick up anime DVDs in libraries. You can pick up mangas in libraries. And you pick it up. It's free. It's free. It's free to read, free to watch. You sit down, you read some of them, stuff like that. Now, all libraries don't have every issue of them, so you end up going from library to find them. But then if you finish it or you can't get the other ones, what do you do next? What do? You find out if a friend might have it, which that's also a situation is a friend might lend you a copy of his anime or his manga. Or you try to go buy it. Okay? You go in to look for it at your local store, at your local books, which, for example, we had the story on Man with the Show. Barnes & Noble is making a comeback. And manga is going to be part of it. They do very well with manga. But understand, you're going to the store to buy their product, to buy their merch because you liked it. You got it for free. You saw it for free from the libraries. You said, well, the libraries bought them and they put them on there. Well, some of the stuff that's pirated comes from somewhere. Some of it from purchase. Some of it downloaded from broadcast television. Now, you have to look to the perspective is, are they really truly losing a lot of money to this? Some of it, it goes back to my youth. The same thoughts that's happening today are the same thoughts before the internet with the VHS and beta industry, when the videotape industry began. They were worried that it would destroy Hollywood, that it would destroy broadcast television. Did it happen? No. They're destroying themselves. Think about that for a minute. They are destroying themselves. They became to the point where they became political with their programming. That they don't see what they're doing. But they shut down the outlets that could save them. Now, I'm not saying that they should support these sites, but remember, Crunchyroll was a pirated site at one point. If you haven't realized that. Yeah. Crunchyroll was a pirate site for anime. And what happened? They became legitimate. Could there be possibility some of these pirated sites become legitimate? If given the chance, possibly. You have to remember where we at right now with streaming. We could be seeing the end of Crunchyroll. So what's left? Crunchyroll goes, what's left? Sony may open up another site, possibly. Most likely, continue the same problems they had with Crunchyroll. And what was that? The politics within the industry not understanding what anime and manga is. The first thing that they have to get out of their minds is that anime and manga are not cartoons for kids or comic books for kids. Mangas are not comic books. And also, you have to remember, there are also light novels, which are regular books for some of these anime series that, they've been adapted from light novels. This is what's in Sony right now. This is the reason why Crunchyroll is in what it is now. Now, it's going to be left up to, if Sony is going to rebuild, it's going to take time. Netflix is going to end up taking over. Then you have Hulu, you have Amazon Prime, you have Disney. And some of these studios, some of these streaming sites and studios don't have a good record when it comes to streaming, to basically new productions. One of the other major things is dubbing and subtitling. Proper translations. Because if you remember, our WB Kids days, those days, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, and a lot of the other series that came across, One Piece, how it was edited for broadcast television. Now, I understand, you want to show these to kids. But the thing about it is, you're taking away from the story itself. You're taking away from the character itself. It's the same way what BBC is doing to classic Doctor Who. If you notice that War Games colorization and how they started to fix it. He said we had to fix it. We had to fix it because, we want to make it more for the modern era. And that's what I hate. I hate when they say that. Made for the modern era. See, the pirate sites did so well because the stuff that was edited, they didn't edit at all. That in the West that they decided to edit. I know South America didn't do that crap. You have to look. Put it this way. Look at the way anime is treated down south. And I'm talking way down South America. You had the season finale of Dragon Ball Super on a big screen in bars, in outdoor arenas and stuff like that, where people, you had hundreds of people, thousands come to watch it. You've seen the videos on YouTube. This is how popular it is. It went from underground, and manga went from underground, being pirated, bootlegged, and becoming a billion-dollar industry. That's no small task for something that at first wasn't really advertised. You have to remember that perspective. And what's happening now is that a lot of these sites like Crunchyroll is having a fit now because it's they have Dragon Ball Daima, which is on their site, and it's also on Netflix, and I believe it's also on Hulu. So they decided, to take a fit and not advertise it. And as far as viewership, it's not doing that well, but it's not a bad series, and that's what's taken away from it. It's probably doing better on pirate sites because basically most people don't know to go to Netflix or to go to Crunchyroll or to Hulu because it's not being advertised. Same thing with Don Da Don Don. That's Don Da Don Don I consider, in the top 5 for 2024. It's a great series. The only reason why some people know of it is because it had some scenes that basically, they call it, between the quotes, controversial. Well, what do you mean by controversial? And I always say this every time, when I'm watching anime situation. It's a story. There's nothing controversial about it. It's a story. It's part of the story. Example is, the scene where they talk, one of the main scenes, it's episode 1, where one of the characters gets kidnapped by aliens. And the aliens try to impregnate her. And people are like, oh, no, we can't have that. Why not? There have been plenty of alien movies where basically science, the stories are based, the aliens, that they do scientific research on human beings. If you've never seen Fire in the Sky, perfect example of Fire in the Sky. If you have not seen that scene of the alien, where they're basically taking the guy alive and they're wrapping him in this stuff and shoving things down his throat, and you're like, oh, are you cringe? And same thing with TV series like X-Files is the same thing. There were some low-budget movies, stuff with Christopher Lee in it, where aliens were, basically doing some things that you normally wouldn't do. But that's the story. That's the story itself. And then you have stuff like Redo the Healer. You go back to Redo the Healer. Redo the Healer, which was popular with a lot of women. A lot of women viewers like to watch that. We're still waiting for a season 2. We hope they do a season 2. Why? Because the story was good. Yes, it had a lot of sex in it. Yes, there was a lot of, as they say, sexual abuse. Let's call it sexual abuse. Why? Why was it in that story? Why was it part of the story? Why should it be part of the story? These are the questions people have. Well, the main part of the story is a guy who was abused by everyone. That basically, at first he thought they were people that liked him. But then they used him. And literally, they just literally became a slave to them. But he became powerful in the end. And I'm not talking about the very end. Just how the story started. And traveled back in time to redo it all. That's what Redo the Healer. But now he knows what these people are. And he changes the arc to where he gets the advantage. Where he gets his revenge on all of these people. Now, if you look at the 1970s, the 1980s, 90s, 2000 in movie history, you will find some of them graphic, some of them semi-graphic, some of them on Lifetime Network, of movies of revenge, where especially women getting revenge on people that have abused them. I Spit on Your Grave, The Burning Bed, Miss 45. I mean, I could go down the list of so many films throughout history, even remakes. I Spit on Your Grave has been remade several times with sequels. And this is what happens to this. And they criticize it. Because again, this is the thought pattern to some people in the industry. And this is how they push it to others. It's cartoons for kids. This should not be in there. Bullshit. This is a story. This is a way of telling a story in artwork. You could tell a story in many different ways. And has been since the cave walls. Okay? Some of it was light in as far as the subject matter. Some of it was adult oriented. Some of it was way over the top. And these are stories that it does happen. And if you think it's just Japan alone that has created this industry, whether it's their standard anime, isekai, ecchi, hentai, and every other subject that they've thrown at us, you've got it wrong. Including the United States, we've created animation that are for kids and for adults of all kinds, and even stuff that's basically X-rated. Criticizing the anime industry, you have it wrong. This is why, and getting into the end of this is why piracy became popular and was a help to the anime industry. Because the anime industry and the manga industry, a lot of their stuff couldn't get out there. And still, to this day, stuff like interspecies reviewers, which is only available in basically a censored version in Australia and New Zealand only. It may not be there anymore, but it was at one point. Crunchyroll removed it. Why? because they thought it was controversial because they're talking about sex. We can't have this. Redo the Healer, World Ends Harem. You know, do we go down the rest of the list on there? There are many others. And the thing about it is, there are some in the hentai world as well. These are border. And if you haven't seen Interspecies Reviewers, you'll be surprised when you watch it. Yeah, it's about picking up, you know, other species. How can I put it? It's adventurers looking for love in the worst. Well, not really love. Looking for sex in the worst way. And of course, they're going for prostitutes, you know, to the story, and they review it to other men. And I tell you, it is a good laugh. It's a really good laugh because of some of the stuff that they go through. I mean, it is a funny situation, and that's not uncommon to a lot of this, you know, sexploitation or sex, you know, high school, you know, stuff that they put out in the 1980s as far as, you know, the, how they call it, the those R-rated movies, boys and girls situations that, you know, Ski School and The Last American Virgin and all that. It's not uncommon to that. But once again, piracy helped keep certain titles alive. And now they're trying to destroy that. Honestly, I think that with some of the, I know some of these are a little bit, you know, some of these pirate sites are a little bit dangerous because basically they can hack into your systems, which those are the sites of the problem. But anyone who watches anime and watches on piracy knows which sites to go to. And just like Crunchyroll, maybe Toei, Toho, and all the others, maybe they should sit down and talk with them. And maybe make them legitimate. Because that's what we need. This is what we need. We need legitimate anime manga sites that will give us the raw, unedited, when it comes to dub, that it's dubbed properly, subtitled properly, gives us a choice whether we want to see a censored version or an uncensored version, which I will give it out there for that, of this product. Yeah, I've said it. It should be this way. But we'll see what happens. It's 2025. I don't see any of that happening anytime soon. So comment. Let me know your thoughts about this. Tell me your thoughts about this whole situation. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you have another opinion to the situation? What are your thoughts about this? Don't forget to share this video, like it, and hopefully today's the day I've earned your subscription. So, thank you for tuning in. See you next time, this time 6 p.m. Eastern on Rumble and YouTube. Be sure to take in some anime and manga this week. Try something new because there's some crazy stuff coming out. Next week we'll talk about 1 or 2 items that are insane out there that hopefully it'll get a anime treatment. Like fine wine, take the anime in, and manga, you know, smell it, feel it, touch it, enjoy it. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye now.
Thanks for watching, commenting, and sharing this video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe as this helps the reach of this channel. Finally, as a content viewer, you have the ability to help support this channel as new internet laws around the world will diminish our reach and affect our sponsors. If you choose to help, there are 2 ways listed in the description below. The first link will lead you to a pay site where you can make a monetary donation. The second will lead you to our gear shop where you can buy shirts, mugs, and other gear. Discounts will be listed on the site. Once again, thank you for watching and your support.